Hi, this is Johannes Krieger with senshi-knives, and in this video I'm going to make glamdring.
He wields the foe hammer, the beater, bright as daylight!
A blade made by the high elves of the First Age for the King Turgon, rediscovered and wielded by Gandalf during the wars to end the Third Age.
You could not wish for a finer blade.
A beautiful challenge. So let's start with the profiling and heat treatment.
So it begins.
Okay, there is a small problem, quite literally, because as you can see, the sword is slightly bigger than my oil tank. So I got to the scrapyard. It's the same stock material, but just a bit bigger.
Nice.
One temper later, in order to make the tip perfectly symmetrical, I deploy a trick from Carl Royer. I trace a profile of the tip section on a piece of paper, flip it over, and spot the tip and the sides on the lines. Now I can see where too much material remains by checking for spots where the line is hidden under the blade. Now I need to repeat this process until I'm satisfied with the result. So, and here we are. Round number 5 is this now. And I'm very happy with the result. With the lines for the fuller marked out, I'm headed for the grinder. With this technique, there is no room for error, as a slip or wrong angle could leave the precious ridgeline damaged. Just like that, the first folder's done. I think it looks amazing. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I have some mistakes here, like where I ground over the side, but I'd expect that to disappear in the tapering of the entire blade. Now for the bevel grind. With that, the sword has straight edge on both sides that I can work to, and with the previously established fuller, I have the other line my bevels want to go to, so now I just have to connect them. The guard! Here it is. I start with the profile I got from pictures and first remove the bulk material by chopping and refine the shape on the belt grinder. Fuck, I think my hand is empty. With the profile done, I get to work on the tang slot. That is particularly hard as the straightness of the construction depends on it, and every mistake is on full display. I start the process with the Dremel tool to establish the edge that has to stay untouched from here on out. The bulk of the material gets removed by the angle grinder and the breakthrough created with drills. Then it is a lot of small detail work and notching ever so closely to the perfect fit. Now for the front spacer. Here I can start directly by punching the hole with a drill and finish it with a file and saw. After the front spacer is fit up the tang, I can fit it up to the unusual shape of the god. With the threaded rod welded in place, I can fit the handle. I use a piece of hard but cheap beech as it will be covered by leather and start by drilling a hole straight through it. The hole fits perfectly on the threaded rod, but needs to be widened to fit the tang in the upper section. The lower spacer is a lot easier than the upper spacer because it's 4mm thick piece of metal. I put a 5mm hole roughly in the center, put a template right over it with a marked center hole there, 5mm. Well, it's time for the first fit up. So let's do it. Cross guard, the top spacer, the handle, the lower spacer, and then a nut for now, not the pommel. Yeah, that's cool. After the first assembly, it was clear that I needed glove fit on the handle slot. For that, I butter up the tang and upper spacer, fill the handle slot with resin and put it in the intended place. Normally I like to pull it off first time after about 3 hours, but here I didn't hear my alarm and it was nearly hardened out 6 hours later. You can see how much force is required to pull it off. The table is not screwed down, so I have to push against it, while the 2 big clamps I'm using are not enough to hold the sword to the table. After I pulled it off, I cleaned the tang and the slot, then put it back to harden in place. I also put it in a pin between spacer and handle, as there was a little bit of play left that got completely eliminated by it. And with that, onto the pommel. I start by drilling and tapping a hole that I use to put it on my drill. With this rudimentary lathe, I get it on the belt grinder and start refining the shape. Next, I round over the front spacer and fit the handle up to both spacers before rounding it as well. From here, I immediately measure and mark out a double spiral on the handle, on which I put a 2mm string that is glued in place with UV resin. Continuing with the pommel, I have to mark out the 8 exactly same-sized facets. I do this by using a little bracket that brings the shaft in an exactly horizontal state and make marks with my height gauge. Then I turn it so far so the old line lines up with the center of the lower spacer and mark again. Now I only have to grind to these lines and polish the resulting facets with finer belts. The guard is the last piece that needs to be sculpted. The side profile is already established, so I start with adding the tapers that first tighten and then widen again on each side. Before sculpting the final shape on the belt sander, working from pictures and film sequences, I identified the bottom side to be completely rounded and the top side to have faces sitting at 45 degrees, culminating in a 2mm wide ridge on the top. The belt sander is really nice to use here, as the different orientations and attachments allow me to get to every point perfectly. The guard is also the only part with artwork etchings in it, so I cut them from vinyl with my plotter, remove the to be etched parts and transfer them onto the guard. Then I take the positive pole to the guard and the negative to the stem, soak it in salt water solution and tap the area repeatedly until the stencil starts to come off. From here on out, it is just a lot of hand sanding. For you, this is just a montage of about 1 minute, but for me, this took about 2 full weeks of sore forearms and fingers. But I got some dope shots out of it. For the leather on the handle, I use a technique called skying. Here I thin down the leather on the end, so gluing the ends over each other leaves no step. I press the leather on very hard so the contact cement can bond as strong as possible and the leather shows the spiral intensely. Then I only have to trim off the ends and the handle is done. And after sharpening, only the stones are missing. It is done. So let's see the final result. Well, it doesn't look half bad, but how does it perform? That's really nice, but how will it do against actual flash? Oops. After all of that testing, it is quite battered. So, is it still sharp? Yeah, I'd say so. Thank you for watching this amazing project. I just loved it. The polished look took quite a toll on me, but it was so worth it. And I had a ton of fun testing it, although I had an unusual amount of hair in my mouth. If you're interested in an extended cut on the testing, I will upload that shortly, so maybe subscribe so you won't miss that. Anyway, this is it for now, and as always, have a nice one. Bye.